Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
So I welcome all of you again for chapter 15, session 15 of Gita Made Easy course, the Yoga of the Supreme Person. It is this chapter is also called Purushottam Yoga. So now we will just look at the overview of the previous chapter that we discussed yesterday. That is chapter 14. It had 4 sections, and this chapter talked about the 3 modes of material nature. So the first section introduced the topic, the 3 modes. It defined the types of modes and where am I situated in those modes. So it gives some idea about that. Second talks about recognizing a mode's supremacy. So always these modes keep fluctuating, and so we also understood that how in the mode of goodness there is more clarity, in mode of passion there is more anxiety, and in mode of ignorance we undergo delusion. And the third section specifically detailed how by acting and dying within the modes, what is the result one obtains. So one, if he dies in mode of goodness, goes to the heavenly planets. One who dies in the modes of passion is on the earthly plane, and one who dies in ignorance reaches hellish planets or goes to the lower species. And the last section talked about how to transcend the modes. So till the time we are in the modes, we will continue to be in the material world. But if we transcend the modes, then the doors of the spiritual world open for us and we can go to the spiritual world. So what are the symptoms of who has transcended? What is his behavior and how to transcend? That was discussed in the 4th section. So that was the overview of chapter 14. So Krishna spoke about devotional service in chapter 14, at the end of chapter 14, and he continues to talk about that in chapter 15. So in chapter 15, Krishna is inspiring us. He is giving us information of his eternal home. The whole spiritual world, material world belongs to him, but where he is always present. So his eternal home, and he compares that with material world where we are currently living, which is infested with reincarnation. We continuously have to reincarnate from one body to another. So Krishna is explaining that. Krishna also explains that how he maintains the whole material world, and so that by hearing all this we can give our heart and soul to him. So this chapter has 4 sections. Section 1, where are we living? Is that our home? Or is it a hotel? That is the first 5 verses. Then Krishna gives a glimpse into the spiritual world. That is the verse number 6 to verse number 11. And then how Krishna maintains us in this material world. That is from the 12th verse to 15th verse. And finally Krishna gives the essence from the 16th to 20th verses. So as we saw in the 10th chapter, there was Chatur Shloki Bhagavad Gita, 10, chapter 8, 9, 10, 11, 4 verses, Chatur Shloki Bhagavad Gita. Similarly, 15th chapter, Purushottam Yoga, it gives us a 3 Shloki Bhagavad Gita, the whole essence of Bhagavad Gita in 3 verses. That is 16, 17 and 18 verses. So we'll be looking at those verses as well. So now let's move in. So this is one example on which we can contemplate a similar theme which we have discussed earlier as well. So now imagine there is a tourist. He checks into a hotel room, and then what he does is he starts painting the wall colors, start painting the walls because he says this color is not good, and then he starts fixing new furniture. He starts revamping the bathroom. He starts putting up family photos. So that's a little crazy, right? So why is he making such elaborate arrangements to a temporary residence, a hotel room, probably for a few days, and then we'll move away? So why in such a temporary residence, why such elaborate arrangements are being made? So this is one thing for us to all understand, because we are in this material world. We are here in this body for a short period of time, 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, 100 years, but we are making complicated plans for our security, for our enjoyment. So much money we have to earn, so much investment we have to do. We have to secure our position, secure the position of our children, and like that. So much we are busy making complex plans for our security and enjoyment, and only to be forced out of this body or of this hotel room with the force, with the waves of time. That is inevitable. And at the same time, you will see there is a beautiful home, a perfect, beautiful home available to us, ready to be occupied, waiting for us in the spiritual world, of which we have no information and of which we have no interest in. So this is what Krishna, this comparison Krishna will be explaining to us. Let's look at the first verse from the 15th chapter. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Urdhva Moolam Adha Shakham Ashwatham Prahuravyayam Chandamsi Yasya Parnani Yastam Veda Saveda Ved. So Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots upwards and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas. So this Krishna is giving an example right in the beginning of the 15th chapter. He is giving an analogy of a tree. So he is comparing this entire material world to a banyan tree. Now, if you understand, a banyan tree is which has grown for a few years, it usually becomes very, very big. It grows big and it has so many branches going down. So it is really very large, very durable, stays for many hundreds of years, sometimes thousands of years as well. So Krishna has taken this particular tree to set an example for this material world, which is very durable, very expansive, right? So Krishna is comparing it to a banyan tree. And he says in this word, Urdhva Moolam. Urdhva Moolam means somehow this tree is upside down. The roots are up, the branches and the leaves are down, which is very unusual. So now imagine if somebody holds us upside down, our head down and legs up. So that's a very uncomfortable situation. So this is how the whole material world is like. But where do you see such a tree? Do you have an experience of seeing an upside down tree? So usually we don't have an experience like that unless we are standing on the shore of a lake, and on the opposite end there is a tree. So when you see that tree standing there, what we see is, we see the tree, but at the same time we see the reflection. So that reflection, the roots are up and the leaves are down. So Krishna is explaining that how reflection of a tree is not factual. It is only a reflection. Similarly, this material world is also not factual. Similarly, the enjoyment that we try to take out of this material world is also not factual. It is illusory. Real tree is there, but it is on the shore. So that's how we get cheated in life. When we search for happiness in this material world, we get cheated because we are searching for it in the reflection. Imagine there is a bird which is trying to pick the fruit of the tree, and it is trying to pick it up from the reflection, right? So it gets cheated. So Krishna is giving this example not only to explain that how this is only a reflection and therefore it is not factual. Krishna is also giving this example to explain that how a real tree or the spiritual world exists. So actually this material world is a reflection of the spiritual world. So for example, all of us have some experience of love. We discussed this some sessions earlier, that we experience love in this life also, little bit, and mixed with lot of lust. So we discussed that how love means to give, lust means to take. So we have experience like our relationship with our parents, our relationships with our children, our relationships with the spouse, relationships with the friends. So in all these relationships we experience some love, but we also experience some lust. So these relationships are not perfect, and therefore Krishna personally comes into this material world he comes with his family members, with his friends, and he exhibits those beautiful relationships which are based just purely on love. Why? So that when we hear about them, we become so attracted and we see, yes, that is the kind of relationship that I want, that is what will really satisfy me. So this propensity to love and to receive love, the perfect person is Krishna. So if we transfer the same love that we are giving to everybody else in the material world, if we transfer this love to Krishna as the Supreme Lord, as a friend, as a son, as a lover or husband, if we transfer this love to Krishna, then that love will never get destroyed, right? Then we really become finally settled. As we will have this experience, the parents are always anxious to settle their children. They will tell their son, okay, your good education, good job, get married and get settled. They will tell their daughters, okay, you want to work, great, but also after some time you should get married and get settled. But we understand that this settling in this material world is another word of unsettling. We never get settled in the material world. One after the other, there are issues. Final settlement comes only in the spiritual world. So let's look at, there are a few interesting life lessons. This world is full of look-alike. Everything is duplicate. We end up with a Reebok while looking for a Reebok. So I'm sure some of us may have that experience. When we are looking for a product, we'll find something which almost looks the same. It has almost the same name, it has almost the same logo, and it sounds the same also, but it is not the real thing. So that is what we get in this material world. So it's duplicate. Let's go to the real one. Let's go to the spiritual world. There all the relationships are pure and completely satisfying. Also, we have one more life lesson based on this, because we are talking about reflection of a tree which is compared to this material world. So reflection may not be factual, but it is indicative of reality. Because there's a tree on the shore, that's why we are able to see that reflection on water. Experience of material world and its varieties indicate existence of the spiritual world. So like we have experience of these relationships in the material world, similar relationships exist in the spiritual world. But those relationships are based on pure love and on spiritual platform, not like here. So what we experience here indicates of what is there in the spiritual world. So the whole point which Krishna is explaining is that we must be very careful and understand this is only a reflection. So how do we get free from this attachment to this reflection? How do we become detached from this reflection? So let's look at 3 quick steps. First is have correct designation. So all of us have this desire in various ways. Some of us want to be called sir. When we go to the office and we are a boss and somebody calls us boss, that is sweet to our ears, right? So somebody wants to be called boss, somebody wants to be called sir, somebody wants to be called president, somebody wants to be called a respectable person, G, right? Or a rich man. Sometimes women want to be, they want to look beautiful, gracious. Some great scientist or a philosopher, they want to be known for that. Nobel Prize or other prizes. They want a position in the society. So, but we need to understand that these designations are only for the body. The designation is for the body and the designation ends with the body, because we leave this body and go elsewhere. So our real designation is we are servants of the Lord. We are devotees of the Lord. That is, we are part and parcel of the Lord. That is our real designation. So if we shift our understanding that this is not my designation. No, my designation is that I am a devotee of the Lord. That is my real designation. I am a spirit soul, part and parcel of the Lord. That is my real designation. Then it is perfect. Second, detachment through attachment. Now, because this is one big thing, when we come to spiritual life, when we talk about spiritual life, there is so much discussion on detachment. We should be detached, we should be detached. But please understand, we cannot be detached. We always have to be attached to something. Right now, we may be attached to matter, but we cannot give up attachment. So rather than being attached to matter, we should shift this attachment to Krishna. That's all. So that movement is required, that shifting is required, because soul is always active and it needs engagement. Like for example, there is a small child and it is playing with something which is dangerous, right? So what parents do, they will immediately become alarmed and they try to take it away from child's hand. Then what the child will do? The child will cry, beg, no, I want that. It will not easily give up that. So what the intelligent parent does? The intelligent parent will give something else to the child. And then gradually the child's attention will shift to the new thing and he will give up the old thing, right? And then it is taken away. So similarly, we should shift our attachment to Krishna. We want food, yes. We want nice, delicious food, yes. Shift it to prasad. Offer it nicely to Krishna with love and devotion and accept prasad. We want to hear music, we want hear Kirtan. In ISKCON, you will see there is so many ways Kirtan is sung, in very traditional ways, in very modern ways, whichever way you like, hear to the holy names. Or if you like reading about stories, adventure, politics, murder mysteries, actually all of this is available in scriptures. We have Srimad Bhagavatam, a collection of amazing stories and of amazing devotees. We have Mahabharata, we have Ramayana, we have so many stories and everything is there, right? So if you want to really read all that, shift that interest to scriptures. And third, giving up lordship over material nature. So actually, this is our very usual outlook. Whenever we look at something which is attracting us, immediately a desire arises in our heart. I want that. Why I don't have that? So we are working in a team and a colleague gets a recognition, he gets a promotion, he gets a salary hike, and it doesn't match with me. Of course, immediately it creates so much of discontent. Why? Because I may feel I did better, he was not so good, there may be various reasons, but the point is we are always trying to lord it over material nature because we have so much of desires, lust. One of the most lustiest person in the entire knowledge of humankind in the material universe has been Ravana. Ravan lusted for Mother Sita, for Mahalakshmi, for the goddess of fortune, for the wife of Lord Rama. And because of that, he thought he can enjoy her. And because of that desire, he got destroyed, his family got destroyed, his whole kulam got destroyed, his country got destroyed just because of that. So we should give up this tendency to lordship over material nature. And how? It is very simple. So we understand, we have discussed this at in several chapters, that this material body, it is made up of energy of Krishna. Others' body is also made up of material nature, which is energy of Krishna. The whole nature is energy of Krishna. I myself am a superior energy, Atma, which is energy of Krishna. So if I see with that vision, of course I understand that Krishna is the proprietor, right? So with that understood, that's why these things have to be repeatedly heard and repeatedly understood and discussed, right? Then gradually we will give up this tendency to lord over material nature. So let's look at a very short, crisp, but very interesting live lesson. Choose a way. Each one of us have that ability to make choices. Krishna has given us that free will. We have to make a choice. And what is that choice? Own way or God's way. So these are the two options. We have to select, right? So that responsibility with us. So, and also another one is also very interesting, this life lesson. So a few generations back, there were movies that would come where you will see that there is a young girl and a young boy and they fall in love and they want to get married, but there is so much of obstacles that come their way. Sometimes it's the family, sometimes it's the relatives, sometimes there is some gangster. So much problem will come and they'll not get married. So until the end of the movie, and at the end of the movie they'll get married and they will end the movie saying, and they lived happily ever after. So we don't know the complete story what happened after marriage, and nowadays many movies start after that. So so this point, and they lived happily ever after, this does not happen so much in our lives, and we all know about it, we are all witness to it. Only spiritual world is a permanent settlement, right? So Krishna is giving us that, he's coaxing us, he's inspiring us to fix that as a goal, right? By explaining about that, that this material world is a reflection of the real spiritual world, he's helping us, inspiring us to fix that higher goal. So okay, so now let's move into the next section, where Krishna is talking about his own abode and comparing it with the material world, so that we get some idea. So here we see, if you see on my right, the way I see it, on my right there is multiple universes and details of one universe. There is some detail is there. I'm not expecting you to read all that. You can't read because it's just an indicative picture. So there is one universe and it is all dark. By the way, if you notice, it's all dark. But on the other side of the picture, if you see, it's all bright. They're all bright. So this is an indication of what verse Krishna is going to speak. Now let's look at the 6th verse, which discusses the spiritual world. Na tad bhasayate suryo na shashanka na pavakaha yad gatva na nivartante tad dhama paramam mama. So Krishna is saying, na tad bhasayate suryo. So this, he's saying the spiritual world, my abode, where I live, my home, my house, it is not lit by Surya, by sun, or by Shashanka, or by moon, or by Pavaka, by electricity. Why? Because there is no need. So let's look at the translation. That supreme abode of mine is not illuminated by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world. So it is one-way traffic. We go there and we will not want to come back also. So one who goes there never comes back, because there is no need of coming back. So all of us will have this experience, maybe after the session, or even now you can understand that if you go to the terrace, what will you see? There is some ambient lighting, because there is so much of light pollution, street lights and whatever. If you are staying in a city or in a village, there may not be so much light pollution. So if you look up, you will see that actually universe is dark. It is dark, right? And what lights up earth? It is primarily sun and it is moon. So these two objects in our sky, they light up our night sky and day sky. So why Lord is giving example of Surya, Shashanka, when he is explaining that they don't exist, they are not required in the spiritual world. Why? So Krishna is giving their example. Why? Because we have no experience of the spiritual world. We have experience of sun and moon. So now we can understand that how different spiritual world is from material world. That here we need sun during daytime, here we need moon in the night time. In spiritual world, both are not required. So how different it is. So how is the spiritual world illuminated? Spiritual world is illuminated from the light rays coming from Lord's body. The Brahma Jyoti. It is super bright, like millions of suns. So that's how the light comes from the form of the Lord. Everybody is illuminating there. Even the other devotees who stay there, their bodies are illuminating. The whole planets are illuminating. So that is the nature of the spiritual world. And we should try to go to such a place. Why? Because we don't have to, we are caught up in this dark universe, right? And we are all suffering here. So in spiritual world, there is no such thing. And once, if we go there, there is no coming back. There is no need. So therefore, this Krishna consciousness movement is like an embassy of the spiritual world. Like for example, people have heard so much about, we have heard so much about US. Some of us may have been to US and we might have come back. Some of us may be in US hearing this, but I'm just giving an example. So we hear about a country. So we might have heard about US. It is very opulent, big roads, big cars, big houses, so much wealth. Right? By hearing all this, we may develop some desire to go there. Okay, let me at least go and see what all is there. So there are a lot of people who go as a tourist. Some people want to immigrate to US. Some people want to go there and work. So there is so much of that desire comes by, how it comes? By hearing so much, about America, by seeing. So, but we see that in spiritual world, so similarly, if we hear about spiritual world again and again and again, then we will develop a desire to go to the spiritual world. In spiritual world, there is no scarcity. Like here we have scarcity. Now COVID, this lockdown is going on, and I'm sure, some of us may be struggling with businesses, some of us may be struggling with jobs, so much anxiety is there. But in spiritual world, there is no anxiety. There is no scarcity. There is no misery. In material world, even the richest man has anxiety. Right? Who is most wealthy, even he has anxiety. So nobody is free from anxiety in the material world. So, and beautiful thing is that there is no precondition of going to spiritual world. Whether we are educated or we are not educated, whether we are rich or we are poor, whether we are black or we are white or brown, right? So there is no bodily qualification that is needed to go to the spiritual. Anybody can go. So therefore, we cannot have any excuse not to practice bhakti, not to practice devotional service. We cannot put any excuse. It is only a choice that we may not want to. Otherwise, there is no limitation or no disqualification otherwise. So Krishna also says, he explains about the spiritual world that it is not anything like this material world, and then he explains his connection with us. He says very beautiful thing, Mamai Vamsho Jiva Loke. He says, you, the spirit soul, that is all of us, we are all eternal fragmental parts of Krishna. So like we have the, a person may father a son. So father may have a son. But sometimes it may happen in due course of time that the son goes away. He leaves the father. The son may even forget the father. But still that relationship of father and son does not get broken. They still remain father and son, even if the son has forgotten the father. Similarly, our relationship with Krishna is eternal. He is our father. We may have forgotten that information. We may have forgotten that knowledge. But that does not break our relationship. We are eternally his son. We are eternally his child. So we have to repeatedly hear this. So Bhagavad Gita, that's why if you see Krishna at various points, he's repeating this information. Why? Because when we repeatedly hear, gradually we become firmly convinced, and then we can practice devotional life. So therefore, Krishna consciousness is actual real Sanatan Dharma. How? We are Sanatan, we are eternal, Krishna is eternal. Krishna consciousness brings these two eternals together so that we can eternally enjoy in the spiritual world. So that is how Krishna consciousness is eternal dharma. So there is a nice life lesson which is coming up. Let's wake up to our real identity and the life will be blissful. Just one conscious decision. I belong to Krishna. That is our real identity. Mamai Vamsho. I belong to Krishna. I am fragmental part and parcel of Krishna. I am a devotee of Krishna. So that is my real identity. And if you notice, this has nothing to do with religion. This has nothing to do with religion. Whether I am following this religious path or that religious path, we are all part and parcel of Supreme Lord. Right? So he is our eternal Father. So that is our real identity. So if we wake up to that reality, then we'll be blissful. So now Krishna has spoken about the spiritual world. Now we will look at the material world. Krishna speaks in few verses about material world. And what aspect is he highlighting? That is reincarnation. Let's see. Shariram yad avapnoti yacchapi utkramatishvaraha grahit vaitani samyati vayurgandhani vashayat. Translation: the living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aroma. Thus, one takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. So, Krishna is explaining that how in this material world we cannot escape this cycle. Right? We have this body, we'll give up and we must take another body. That is law of nature. We cannot do anything in that. We cannot break it and on our own strength. And the process, Krishna is giving an analogy. Vayur Gandhan, which means the smell. As the air picks up a smell, similarly, we also pick up certain conception. So, for example, all of us would have this experience in cities. We have this good experience in Chennai. There are certain parts where you'll get no smell, but certain part you get really bad smell. So there are large dumping grounds, garbage dumping grounds. So whenever you cross that, there are huge roads next to it. So wherever you go in that area, such bad smell will come. Why? Actually, air has no smell, but all that air has passed over that garbage and it is smelling of that, it is stinking. Sometimes I ask, people staying there, how do you manage this stink? So they don't get that stink. When we come from some other place, we can experience that stink. Similarly, when the same air passes over a rose garden, right, then it smells of rose. Like if you enter a mall, now soon the malls are getting opened. So if you enter a mall, there's a bakery or there is something else. So you'll get that fragrance which will come from there, So the air does not have a smell, but it picks up the smell. So it says Vayur Gandhan. So similarly in this life, we are picking up smell, and based on that our next body will be fixed. So we are right now making our next body. So you will see in this picture that it is not that we have got a human body and next body is definitely a human body. That is not said anywhere in Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna doesn't talk about it, Vedas don't talk about it. Reincarnation is a fact, and we travel into any species depending on how we smell, right? So sometimes, so right now some of us, air is moving through a rose garden, it's smelling so nice. Some of us, the smell is moving through toilet, so it is stinking. So we have to check, what's happening with us. So this smell refers to the kind of mentality or the swabhava that we develop. I'll give you one example. It's a very strong example, right? But it's an example to clarify the subject. We have a tongue, the tongue with which I'm speaking. So we have a tongue. Similarly, a pig also has a tongue. But the pig tongue and my tongue, it is little different. How? The pig has a taste for garbage and stool, but my tongue does not have. Right? Why? Because the mentality, the swabhava is different. So in this life, if I tend to eat indiscriminate, I don't, whatever comes I want to try, whatever comes I want to eat, whatever comes I want to taste, that tendency is not of a human being. What will happen is, gradually, because this body is not fit for that, so gradually a body will be given of a hog. Hog does not discriminate. If you fry jalebis and puris in desi ghee, give to the hog, it will eat. And if there is stool, that also it will eat. So it does not discriminate. So just to give an example that how the air, it picks up that fragrance or the bad smell, and that's how it gets the next body. So we are, all of us, we are in the process of making our next body. Now what this Krishna conscious movement is telling us, what Bhagavad Gita is telling us, what is Krishna telling us, what is Srila Prabhupada telling us, that we must try that our next body should be like Krishna, spiritual body. And that way we can play with Krishna, we can dance with Krishna, we can joke with Krishna in the spiritual world. So that should be our goal, that our next body is not a material body. Next body is a spiritual body. And with that we can be eternally with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. So there is our life lesson for all of us. Change is inevitable in the material world. Are we changing and rising, or are we changing and falling? Change is inevitable, right? So based on the change, are we rising with that change or we are falling with that change? So it's very, very important to monitor our choices. Every choice actually matters, because every choice, with every choice we make this way, that way, this way, that way, and when we make a choice, there also we'll get another choice. So there again we are making choices. So every choice matters. So we have understood in this section that how the spiritual world is nothing like this material world, and in this material world we are constantly going from one body to another body, like the air going and collecting the smell. So now Krishna is talking further and he's saying that how I maintain all of you, how Krishna is maintaining all of us. So he's giving this detail in the next section. Let's look at that. This is from the 12th to 15th verse. And what Krishna maintains? He maintains everything. He maintains our gross body. He maintains our subtle body, the mind. He maintains our soul. So actually, if you we'll go through these verses, you can actually appreciate, you can actually realize that how Krishna is our real father and real mother. Like our mother, she has born us in her womb, she has fed us her milk, and she has taken care of till the time we can take care of ourselves. Similarly, Krishna has been taking care of us like that mother and like that father since time immemorial, in everybody. And not only for me, for all the living entities. So this is the beauty that we will see in this section. So let's look at this 13th verse, how he is maintaining the body. Gam avishya cha bhutani dharyami ahamojasa pushnami chaushadhi sarva somo bhutva rasadmakaha. So we've just taken some representative verses. Here Krishna is saying, I enter into each planet and by my energy they stay in orbit. Okay, so we would have seen, of course, we would have studied in our school in science that we have a solar system and we have sun and we have these planets. Although the discussion is still on how many planets do we have, and from the time I got educated the number of planets have changed, but we'll not have that discussion here. So we have sun, we have the planets, and we see that there are orbits, and their orbits are not on all same plane, and each orbit they are rotating, revolving, all that is happening. And how that is happening, actually we never asked that question. Did we ever ask that question to the science ma'am or in geography? How is it happening on its own? Right? That's nature, because that they don't have a better answer than that. And here Krishna is saying, it is happening because I am making them stay in their orbit. Right? I become the moon. Krishna is further saying, I become the moon and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables. So I was very intrigued. When I read this first time, I was very intrigued. Wow, actually it is Krishna who is supplying the juice of life to all the vegetables. That is fantastic. So I wanted to do some research, not because I wanted to cross check, but I wanted to know whether people are aware of this. Then I realized that actually the farmers are aware of this, and in fact there is some research on this, that how the juice flow in plants changes with the phases of moon. So it's a properly recorded research is there, and Krishna is saying, I become the moon and thereby supplying the juice of life to all vegetables. So that was a fantastic piece of information there. Let's look at how Krishna is doing. So we see that because of the presence of the sun, we have this cycle. All of us would have studied, I think, in geography, where there is the evaporation, then becomes the cloud, and then falls on the mountains or otherwise on land, and then the water runs off the surface, comes through the rivers, goes to the ocean, and the whole cycle continues. Similarly, we have a CO2 cycle, right? How the CO2 comes and how it is resynthesized, photosynthesized. So it is not just that, we have many ecological cycles which are going on simultaneously in this on our planet, which is a small planet in this huge universe. Such intricate processes are there for making our survival possible, right? So there's a carbon cycle, phosphorus cycle, nitrogen cycle, water cycle, oxygen cycle. So all these cycles are very important cycles for maintaining life on this planet. So how intricate arrangement has been done by the Lord. And we also know that this ozone layer, and we don't get these dangerous radiations penetrating through it. Some time back, a huge hole opened up in ozone layer over North Pole, right? So scientists saying that no, it will get covered, whatever. But such an arrangement is there, and that's why we are able to survive in these bodies, because that's appropriate protection is being given. So let's look at, so we have compiled the fine points here onto this slide. How Krishna is maintaining, it's very interesting for all of us to know. So Krishna is saying, Aditya Gatama Tejo, I am the splendor of the sun. So as sun, Krishna is providing heat and he is providing light. Okay, so these energies he is providing. Then he says, Gam Avishya Cha Bhutani Dharyami, which means he is maintaining the planets. So he's talked about the sun, he talked about the moon, he talked about the planets. Then he's saying Pushnami Chaushadi Sarvaha, supply the juice of life to all vegetables. Now further what Krishna is saying, this is very interesting. He says Vaishvanaraha, I am fire of digestion. Then he says Pranapana Samayukta Pachami Annam. Prana Apan. So there are two words, Prana Apan Samayukta Pachami Annam. So he's saying that I digest the food stuff by outgoing and incoming air. So now you look at the whole cycle. First, sun is there, light, and it gives the heat, and therefore there are so many things which are enabled on this planet. So many cycles, ecological cycles happen because of the sun. One. Second, he is maintaining this earth and all the other planets. So this planet is so stable, right? It doesn't jerk. Imagine, it is moving around its axis, suddenly it jerks. What will happen? We get small earthquake and so much damage, so many buildings, are demolished, people die. But there is no, this rotation doesn't have a problem. All these, so stability is provided by the Lord for the food to grow and for us to be stably living in this, on this earth. Then he is saying, I supply the nutrition, the juice of life to the vegetable. By eating them, we feel enlivened. So that is provided by the Lord. Not just that. He is giving us the fire of digestion. By eating that food, to digest that food also, Krishna is giving the energy. He is the fire of digestion. Jatharagni. Right? This Agni in the stomach which digests the food. And then also the outgoing and incoming air which helps in digestion. So one, Krishna arranges for food, Krishna provides the food grains, then Krishna enables us to digest that food and absorb that food. So now we understand that how Krishna is actually a real mother and real father, how he is actually maintaining us. And sometimes, we are very proud of so many things. After hearing this, can we understand that what can we really be proud of? What can we be proud of? Right? So in fact, we should have so much of gratitude for Krishna, that how without all these lives we have lived, all this time we have lived without knowing all this, right? So where's the question of having this gratitude? But after knowing this, our heart should become very full of humility and gratitude. So that's our next life lesson. Awareness that for everything we are dependent on Krishna brings a profound sense of gratitude and humility. So that is why reading Bhagavad Gita is so profound. That's why we always say that Bhagavad Gita is not just a book of knowledge, Bhagavad Gita is a book of wisdom. By reading Bhagavad Gita, we don't just become knowledgeable, we become wise. Right? So awareness that everything we are dependent on Krishna brings such a profound sense of gratitude and humility. So we move on to the next verse. This is, we saw how Krishna is maintaining the body. Now we see how Krishna is maintaining the mind and soul. So many people have questions regarding this. So hear carefully. This is the very famous verse, 15th verse of the 15th chapter. Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto mattaha smritirgyanam apohanam cha Vedeshcha sarvairahameva vedyo vedanta krit veda ved eva chaham. So this is a very famous verse. And what is Krishna saying? He's talking about two aspects. How he maintains the subtle body and how he maintains the soul. So he's saying, I am seated in everyone's heart. So all of us who are watching here, in each one of our heart, Lord is residing. So he is also hearing to Bhagavad Gita, right? He is also hearing to this, right? So he is seated in everyone's heart, and Krishna is saying from him comes three things: remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So these three things come from Krishna, and he says further regarding the soul, by all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta and I am the knower of the Vedas. So we'll look at these points one by one. So Krishna is saying, for me comes remembrance, knowledge and forgetfulness. So sometimes people are very confused, why Krishna gives forgetfulness also? Well, please consider this point. If every incident of your this life, good or bad, if every incident of this life you can clearly remember all of them, now, how would you feel? Now, I cannot get responses from you, but you can experience that so much of it will be very difficult experience, because we have good experiences, yes, but we have so many bad experiences also. And imagine if we can read all of them, we can remember all of them, not read. If we can remember all of them, what will be our situation? One. And not only of this life, if we can remember of the previous life and the previous life and the previous life, and we don't know which body we were in, and if we can remember all of that, what will happen to us? We cannot remain sane. We cannot do what we are doing right now. We cannot exist in this current situation, right? So now we understand why Krishna gives us forgetfulness. It is also his kindness, right? It is also his grace. So when we change from the previous body to our current body, we don't remember what family, we don't remember what body, we don't remember what gender, we don't remember our education. So all that is covered. But it is said that here Krishna gives remembrance. What remembrance does he give? Because in every life we have a list. I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. That Krishna remembers. He takes that list from us, he keeps in his pocket. When we take next body, then he takes out that list and he says, hey, you wanted this, you wanted this. No, you can try. You got another body, fresh body, try. So this is what Krishna helps us. So all our desires which were there, he will remember and he will remind us. Also, Krishna gives us knowledge. Very interestingly, not just in human species, but even in lower species, animal species, Krishna gives knowledge. See, when a puppy is born, it is born with its eyes closed. It cannot open its eyes for few days. But the moment puppy is born, it knows what to do. From where? How does it know? So therefore, Krishna says, I give knowledge. So the puppy has a knowledge. Search for mother's nipple. So that's why the puppy will come and search for mother's nipple. The moment mother dog will come, the puppy will find and it will take milk and get nourished. I wanted to also narrate one very interesting research. This was done by some devotees. So there is in Africa there is a bird called ostrich, and ostrich lays really big eggs. and it is not able to take care of all the eggs, because you know all the eggs are placed, but they are not able to take care of all the eggs. So some eggs are not taken care of. So there is this, and it is very difficult to break. So if there is a bird which wants to eat, it's very difficult to eat the egg because the shell is very hard. So there is one Egyptian vulture. It knows very well how to break and eat that egg. What it does is, it cannot break it with its teeth. So it will go pick up a stone, fly and go to an appropriate height and drop the stone from there. And that stone will fall exactly on the egg, break the egg, and then the vulture will come and eat it. So we may say evolution, it may have learned behavior, this, that. So what happened is, there was an abundant vulture chick. So the vulture, there was a chick, it was a baby vulture. Baby vulture, could not do anything. So this baby vulture was abandoned. So it was orphan. It did not have an opportunity to learn from the parents. So it was separated like that. When this chick grew up, it could fly and it became a young adult. So this chick was presented with the ostrich egg. It had never seen ostrich egg before. But the moment it saw the ostrich egg, the vulture, that young vulture became very agitated, started looking here and there, and finally it found a stone, it flew up to a height and it dropped the stone and broke the egg. From where did it get that knowledge? Right? So we see that how Krishna gives knowledge. So not only to humans, but all species, if you say they all manage their affairs without our interference. Actually, when we interfere, we damage their processes. So all species have their own processes and it is going on. So here, coming back to this verse, Krishna says, by all the Vedas I am to be known. So the central point of all the Vedas, all the Upanishads is one. Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is what Krishna is saying. Second, I am the compiler of Vedanta. So we all know that Ved Vyas is an incarnation of Krishna and he compiled Vedanta or the aphorisms of Brahma Sutra. So Ved Vyas is the compiler of Vedanta. So that's what Krishna is saying. I am the compiler of Vedanta, because Ved Vyas is an incarnation of Krishna. And finally the point that I am the knower of Vedas. So here we see Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is presenting the essence of Vedas. So without knowing how he can do, so he is the source of Vedas and he is the knower of Vedas. And that's how he is presenting the scriptures here. So very important life lesson. Forgetfulness is also a grace of Lord. It saves us from so many miseries. So please remember that, because that point sometimes we get stuck up. And we also saw that how Krishna is the maintainer of our soul through scriptures, Ved Vyas. So like we have a machine, if it is manufactured, the company will give you a catalog or it will give you a manual with which we understand how that machine works. So similarly, the Vedas, the Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavatam, the Vedas are the manual for this universe. They give us the rules, what to do and what not to do. So if the child just follows the father's instruction, then it will act perfectly, right? So that's how Krishna is maintaining our soul, and we have a life lesson here, a very, very significant life lesson. Please make a note. When we do something for others, we want to be praised. We may not express, but it may be somewhere there. When others do for us, when others do something for us, we think it is their duty. My mother is doing something for me, duty. My father is doing something for me, his duty. My elder brother is doing something for me, his duty. My friend is doing something for me, yeah, out of friendship he is doing something, his duty. But Lord is doing everything without any expectation. So this shows that how he loves us unconditionally. That is unconditional love. He is doing so much for us from time immemorial, birth after birth, without any expectation. This is the unconditional love that he has for us. So finally, we move to the essence of this Bhagavad Gita and essence of this chapter. Very beautiful 3 shloki Bhagavad Gita. Please make a note, 16th, 17th and 18th verses are the 3 shloki Bhagavad Gita, essence of Bhagavad Gita in 3 verses. It's very simple. So we'll read this verse. Dvau imau purushau loke sharashchakshara evacha sharaha sarvani bhutani kutasthoksara uchyate. So what is Lord saying? There are two classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible. In the material world, every living entity is fallible. And in the spiritual world, every living entity is called infallible. So what is this word fallible, infallible? Fallible means he is imperfect, makes mistakes. So everybody in the material world is imperfect. Everybody in the spiritual world is perfect. Now please, let's look at this verse and we'll compare with previous verse. So Krishna is saying, Mamai Vamsho Jiva Loke. My part, all living entities are my part and parcel. So in the material world also everybody is Krishna's part and parcel. Everybody in the spiritual world also is Krishna's part and parcel, which means our brothers and sisters, they are living in this world, and our brothers and sisters are also living in the spiritual world. They are also our brothers and sisters only, but they are living in the spiritual world and we are living in the material world. They are infallible, they are perfect, but we are imperfect because we make mistake. We have made a bad choice here, right? So this sharas akshara. So also Krishna it says kutasthok shara uchyate. So Arjuna, Krishna is also called Achyuta. Achyuta means infallible, perfect. And those who follow Achyuta, those who follow Krishna are called Achyutatma, that they are the perfected souls. So in the material, everybody is imperfect, but those who follow Krishna's instruction, those who practice Bhakti Yoga, they gradually change from fallible, they gradually change to from fallible to infallible, from imperfect to perfect. So gradually, by practicing Bhakti Yoga, by chanting Hare Krishna, by reading Bhagavad Gita, we gradually become perfect right in this material world, and then after becoming perfect, we go to the spiritual world. So let's look at a quick comparison. Fallible people in the material, they always want to independently enjoy. They have nothing to do with God, and therefore they always are in the material world. And those brothers who are there in the spiritual world, brothers and sisters who are there in the spiritual world, they are infallible. Why? They always want to be with Krishna. They never want to be separated from him. They never want to leave the spiritual world because there is so much happiness and satisfaction there, right? So therefore they are infallible. And what about Krishna? Very beautiful verse. Yasmat sharam atitoham aksharaadapi chottamaha ato asmi loke vede cha prathitaha purushottamaha. So this is the 18th verse. And what is Krishna saying? Because I am transcendental, beyond both the fallible and the infallible, and because I am the greatest, I am celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as that supreme person. So Krishna is saying these two living entities are there. Material world fallible, spiritual world infallible, material world imperfect, spiritual world perfect. But beyond these imperfect and perfect living entities, I exist. I am beyond both of them, right? And because I am the greatest, Krishna is saying, therefore in Vedas, wherever there is a description of Supreme Lord, wherever there is a description of Supreme Person, it indicates Krishna. So this is what Krishna is explaining to us in this verse. So therefore this is 3 shloki Bhagavad Gita. In 3 shlokas, the entire essence of Bhagavad Gita is given in a very simple way. So a very important life lesson coming for us. This is for us. Though fallible, we can still achieve all success just by following the yoga of the Supreme Perfect Person, Sri Krishna. So we are imperfect, Krishna is perfect. If we connect with him, then we become perfect, right? So the yoga of connecting with him. And we have one more coming up. With this we will complete the chapter today. So please, I seek your attention. Most confidential understanding of the Vedas. What is that? Lord Krishna is the supreme being. He is therefore worshipable. Always remember this, and the life would be perfect. So with that, we come to the end of this session. We'll have a quick overview of this chapter. So this chapter also has 4 sections. So we started by this comparison of hotel with the home, right? How this material world is temporary and how spiritual world is perfect and eternal. And we have a permanent eternal house there waiting for us. But we are trying to change from one hotel room to another hotel room. And one who understands this is the knower of the Vedas. So that was the first. Second section, Krishna talked about the spiritual world and the material world. Characteristics of the spiritual world: does not need sun, moon to light it up. Characteristics of the material world, that how we keep going in reincarnation. We keep changing bodies one after another. And why is that? Because we have lost our connection with Krishna. Third section, Krishna is our maintainer. He maintains our body. He maintains our mind, subtle body. He maintains our soul. So like that, Krishna is our eternal father and mother. And finally, the essence of Bhagavad Gita: in the material world, there are fallible, imperfect living entities. In the spiritual world, there are perfect, infallible living entities. They never want to leave Krishna. They always want to be with him. In the spiritual world, material world, they never want to look in direction of Krishna. So they are all in their own places. And how Krishna is beyond both of these, fallible and infallible. So with that, we come to the end of this chapter. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.